Biden pressure grows. Top Dems think he'll drop out within days, report says. President Joe Biden has been more willing to privately hear arguments urging him to drop out of the 2024 race. Multiple outlets reported late Wednesday, and some high-profile Democrats reportedly told Axios they suspect he could drop out as soon as this weekend. Biden has insisted he's not dropping out, but some unnamed top Democrats told Axios they believe Biden could leave the race as early as this weekend, saying Biden understands leaders in his party, friends and donors believe he will lose in November and they can't change public opinion on his age and ability to govern. No high-level Democrats have publicly indicated Biden is preparing to drop out, but the New York Times reported Wednesday Biden has been more receptive to arguments about him ending his re-election bid and is also willing to listen to unflattering polling data, citing Democrats briefed on the matter. CNN also reported Biden as receptive, adding the president has inquired about Vice President Kamala Harris's chances against Trump, with an unnamed Democratic advisor saying Biden has gone from saying, "Kamala can't win," to asking, "Do you think Kamala can win?" While he has been more willing to hear alternative ideas, a person close to Biden told The Times there is nothing yet that indicates Biden is planning to change course, and spokesperson Kevin Munoz told CNN, President Biden is the Democratic nominee and he is going to win this November. Biden is also facing more direct pressure from top Democrats in Congress. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, DKLF, has told Biden current polling data showed he could not defeat former President Donald Trump in November and could wreck Democrats' chances of retaking the House, CNN reported. Biden reportedly got defensive about the poll numbers and even pushed back by pointing to polls showing he could still beat Trump. The reports about Biden's willingness to discuss the path forward for his re-election campaign come after weeks of calls for him to step down after his poor debate performance. About 20 lawmakers have called on Biden to step down since late June, including Rep. Adam Schiff, DKLF, the most prominent congressional Democrat to call for him to leave the race. A number of other big names have also called for Biden to step down, including A-listers George Clooney, a historically big Democratic donor, and actor Rob Reiner, and billionaires Christy Walton, Michael Novogratz, and Reed Hastings. Adding to his woes, the president tested positive for COVID-19 on Wednesday and was forced to cut short a campaign tour to self-isolate at his Delaware residence. The White House said he was only experiencing mild symptoms. In an interview with Bet that aired on Wednesday, Biden said he would be willing to drop out if his doctors determined he had a medical condition that could prevent him from running. Every big name urging Biden to drop out. Adam Schiff joins 19 other Democrats in Congress. Biden begins to accept he may have to drop out of race, New York Times reports. Reuters. Washington. Reuters, U.S. President Joe Biden has begun to accept the idea that he may not be able to win the November election and may have to drop out of the race, the New York Times reported on Thursday, citing several people close to the president. Every big name urging Biden to drop out. Over 20 Democrats in Congress speak out. Representative Jim Costa, DKLF, called on Biden to pass the torch to the next generation to carry on the legacy he started, in a statement Thursday, a day after Rep. Adam Schiff, DKLF, became the most high-profile House member to publicly call on Biden to drop out, telling the Los Angeles Times he has serious concerns Biden can't beat former President Donald Trump. Reps. Brittany Pedersen, D. Colo, and Mike Levin, DKLF, were the 18th and 19th Democrats in Congress to publicly call on Biden to drop his bid, with both praising Biden's years of public service but saying it was time for Biden to stand down. Reps. Jim Himes, D-Con, Scott Peters, DKLF, and Eric Sorensen, D3, pushed Biden to end his campaign last week, issuing statements right after Biden ended a high-stakes press conference wrapping up a NATO summit that was widely viewed as a key opportunity to stop the Democratic defections. A litany of other House Democrats have publicly urged Biden to stand down. Reps. Greg Stanton, D. Aries, Adam Smith, D. Wash, Ed Case, D. Hawaii, Brad Schneider, D3, Hillary Scholten, D. Mish, Earl Blumenauer, D. Orr, Pat Ryan, DNY, and Mikey Sherrill, DNJ. Sen. Peter Welch, DVT, is the only Senate Democrat to call for Biden's withdrawal from the race, saying Biden should withdraw for the good of the country, in a Washington Post op-ed Wednesday. Seth Moulton, D. Mass, and Raul Grajeva, D. Aries, have all called on Biden to stand down. Representative Lloyd Doggett, Texas, was the first sitting Democratic lawmaker to push for Biden to step aside after the debate, explaining he had hoped that the debate would provide some momentum, but Biden instead failed to effectively defend his many accomplishments and expose Trump's many lies. Which celebrities have called for Biden to drop out? Several A-list celebrities have stepped up to criticize the president for staying in the race, including Biden fundraiser George Clooney, who penned an op-ed in the New York Times imploring Biden to save democracy and step away from the race. Other Hollywood figures include actor Rob Reiner, author Stephen King, and heiress Abigail Disney. Wealthy donors have called for Biden's withdrawal. Billionaire Mark Pincus, who has reportedly donated more than $1 million to support Biden and the Democrats since December, is the latest well-heeled Biden supporter to urge Biden to step aside, including billionaires Christy Walton, Michael Novogratz, and Reed Hastings. Mark Cuban has said Democrats should assess whether another person can step in as the nominee. Forbes. President March should bow out of the race, though Biden later appeared on the show for a defiant phone interview. Meanwhile, the New York Times editorial board pushed Biden to leave the race the day after the debate, followed by similar calls from the editorial boards of the Chicago Tribune, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and the Boston Globe. A litany of left-of-center Times opinion writers have urged Biden to step aside in recent weeks, including Biden's self-described friend Thomas Friedman, Nicholas Kristof, Ezra Klein, and Paul Krugman, who called Biden the best president of my adult life. Other calls to drop out came from New Yorker editor David Remnick, who said remaining in the race would be an act not only of self-delusion but of national endangerment. Washington Post columnist David Ignatius and Atlantic staff writer Mark Leibovich. Biden has rebuffed the calls to step aside in the race, telling congressional Democrats in a letter earlier this month, it's time for discussions about his debate performance to end. Calls for Biden to drop out of the race have grown louder in the wake of his rocky debate performance against Trump last month, as he spoke softly, gave disjointed answers, and often stood with a blank stare on his face and his mouth agape while Trump was speaking. The calls have grown louder over the past 3 weeks as his efforts to undo the damage from his debate performance are widely viewed to have fallen short, and have featured additional gaffes during high-profile public appearances, including misnaming Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as President Putin and Vice President Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump. Naming Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as President Putin and Vice President Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump. There's no official mechanism to kick Biden off the ticket if he doesn't step down voluntarily, but the delegates who will vote to formally select a nominee at the party's convention in August could revolt against him and select another candidate in his place. Biden has swept the primaries, winning nearly 3,900 of the party's 4,000 pledged delegates who will vote to formalize the nominee, and party rules require them to, in good conscience, reflect the sentiments of those who elected them. A revolt is unlikely. Pledged delegates are not legally beholden to voting for Biden, but they are generally loyalists of the party's chosen nominee who are elected at state party conventions, in primaries or caucuses with heavy influence from the campaign of the party's preferred candidate. If Biden, or any candidate, fails to win a majority of pledged delegates on the first ballot at the convention, voting will continue until somebody wins an outright majority, with pledged delegates free to vote for whoever they want in later ballots. The 700-some unpledged superdelegates, elected officials, and party leaders who can vote for anyone they please, will also be allowed to vote on the second ballot. Party rules prohibit them from voting on the first ballot. If Biden voluntarily steps aside before the convention, his pledged delegates would be free to vote for an alternative candidate in an open convention, likely setting the stage for intense negotiations as other Democratic politicians angle to replace Biden. If Biden steps aside after the convention, the Democratic National Committee's approximately 500 members could call a special meeting to choose a new presidential and vice presidential nominee by majority vote. The party plans to vote for a nominee before the convention begins on August 19th via virtual roll call to adhere to a since-modified Ohio law that required presidential candidates be nominated at least 90 days before the November election, in this case August 7. Ohio has since pushed back the deadline, but the party still plans to move forward with the early roll call. Biden rejected suggestions that he should step aside in speaking to reporters after the debate, answering no when asked about the prospect and blaming his poor performance on former President Donald Trump. It's hard to debate a liar, Biden said, before telling supporters in Atlanta in a post-debate speech, let's keep going. On Friday, Biden delivered a fiery speech from Raleigh, North Carolina, in which he sounded notably more energetic than he did the previous night and reiterated his plans to keep running, admitting, "I don't debate as well as I used to." Any candidate who were to challenge Biden at the convention would need to first select a running mate. Speculation has swirled for months about who could replace Biden as the Democratic nominee amid concerns surrounding the 81-year-old president's age. Vice President Kamala Harris is the most obvious choice to replace him, though she has an uphill battle in winning over voters given her 39% approval rating. California Governor Gavin Newsom is another name commonly floated, but he's repeatedly dismissed the prospects of replacing Biden, voicing his allegiance to the president in interviews after the debate. As of Friday morning, no prominent Democrats had openly called on him to step down, and there is no public consensus within the party about who would replace Biden if he did. Biden stammered through Thursday's debate, losing his train of thought minutes after it began, speaking with a hoarse voice throughout the 90-minute program, and giving incoherent responses to several questions. Abysmal reviews poured in on social media, even from some of Trump's staunchest critics, and by the end of the debate, Democratic operatives, donors and elected officials were reportedly discussing replacing Biden. By Friday morning, Biden-friendly pundits, including MSNBC's Morning Joe host Joe Scarborough and New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman, were openly suggesting Biden should drop out, predicting that if Democrats don't replace him now, they're effectively handing Trump another term. As you leave the page, don't forget to hit the like bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet. Thank you for watching.